Hey everybody, it's me again. I just, my other videos over just my thoughts and morality. There was a couple questions that I've looked at about evolution and just some different stuff about that, so that's kind of be what I'm going to be covering today. Okay, so my uncle, and this is kind of an interesting story, my uncle went to an art museum and didn't want to go, so he was sitting outside. And he started talking to this old man, this old blind man. And he started talking to him, and he was an astrochemist. And the government gave him, well, I'm not sure if it was the government, it was just some organization, gave him this gas called hydrogen cyanide. And it was from Halley's Comet and a bunch of other, stuff in space that they had gathered this gas from. So anyways, this man was testing on it and figured out that when mixed with water, the gas became amino acids, which is the building blocks for life. It creates life, these amino acids. And so that was a big step in, kind of proving evolution. Another thing is that a lot of people don't really understand evolution to the point where they can actually have a discussion about it. And I'm not saying that nobody does. A lot of people do, but I have run into people that don't really know what they're talking about. So this is kind of evolution from an atheist standpoint, I guess you could say. Alright, so of course you all know in the beginning, single-celled organisms. And the thing with that, and that, explains the amino acids and the hydrogen cyanide, it makes sense how that got there. Just right off the bat, I don't know how the hydrogen cyanide got there, so I'm going to go ahead and admit that if that's what you want to say that God did, that's fine, whatever. So, evolution, everything was single-celled organisms, okay? So just floating around. Single-celled organisms divide, as you know. But sometimes the division in these organisms splits and the two cells stick together and can't fully come apart. Okay, so then that happens time after time and it builds up these cells. Well, then these cells can eventually become tiny, like tiny organisms, swimming around, and then that eventually became they crawl up on land. Now the whole thing with the land is that it was a very slow process. It's like how a frog becomes a tadpole. A tadpole becomes a frog. The tadpole eventually grows legs, and that's kind of what happened with the fish. They did kind of evolved. Okay, well then that happened over millions of years, right? So none of this happens very quickly, and all this stuff happened, and a lot of people. Humans didn't evolve from monkeys. We evolved from apes, which is a really different thing in the fact that their DNA structure is very different. And so this is kind of how this whole thing happened. We just kind of kept building up until where we are today. So that's kind of how the evolution process works. And the thing with all the plants and animals is that you evolve depending on where you are, where it will help you. Like the Venus flytrap. It lives in a place where it doesn't get a lot of sun, so it had to evolve to be able to get nutrients somehow. And that's why that plant can eat flies. And it's the same thing with all different kinds of animals, and it's really a beautiful thing. It really is. I mean, you can say that science kind of ruins all this stuff, but I don't really feel that. I think that it just, either leads to more questions that need to be answered or can explain something that's just amazing. So that's that whole process. And one of the questions that somebody on my comment thing asked me is that if you took a child and took it away from its parents and had it had no knowledge of anything and put it out there to live on its own, okay, if that child could survive, would it believe in God? And my answer to that was yes, it would, because if you notice that, okay, so if it had no prior knowledge to anything, it wouldn't know what the sun was. And you can see in past religions, they worship the sun. I mean, that's pretty much all what religions do. And if you want to look up Zeitgeist, on YouTube. That's Zeigeist, and watch the part on religion. It's really interesting, and I think it could give you guys a little more atheists, a little more arguing points, and then it could test the strengths between people that believe in God. Alright, so that's all the time that I have now. I'll let you guys go with that, and if you have any questions, I can make more videos about it. See you later.